Welcome to Manelookpodcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this is the show where we have a real conversation about real life situations. I mean everything. And I try to also include how to apply scripture to these real life situations. We laugh, we cry, and we sometimes have to get serious. And today is a serious matter. Today's show's topic is loneliness. So this situation literally made me say, man, look, I know I'm not the only person that's ever felt lonely. And when you really think about it, with COVID going on, I think a lot of people are feeling lonely. But it got me to thinking, why? Why do I feel so lonely? What is going on? And how can I fix it? Because have you ever been one of those people that's in a room full of people who love you and care about you, but literally feel so little, so unseen? That's me. And to be honest, it's not something that happens every day. And it's not something that is like super consistent. Like, it's not depression, but I do have these bouts where I just feel so alone. Now, in my personal situation, I'm a single mother. I'm not dating, and then COVID is happening. So there are times where I feel easy to feel lonely. So when I would express this to my friends, I found it funny because they would say, girl, you can be lonely in a marriage. And I'm telling you, my head would be blown because I'm like, how? There's literally somebody always there that you can share, that you can laugh, that you can cry with. And the idea that I could be in a committed, happy marriage and be lonely got me to thinking. So y'all know me. Well, we still getting to know each other, rather. I got to do my research. So I did. And I looked up a couple of articles that's talking about loneliness. And we're going to get into the scriptures. But I want to have a real conversation, guys, because mental health is so important. And with this being the second installment of National Helpine Podcast, the mental health series, I want to make sure we really deal with and not just try to brush under the rug how we're feeling. And a lot of people know how they feel, but they have no clue what to do with it. And let's be real, most of us either won't, can't, or just don't know how to get to therapy. A lot of people don't have insurance, so they can't just go to therapy. And even if they do, if you're somebody like me, I had no clue what to do. I tried and couldn't find a therapist. And the reality is, when I'm going to have time to go? I got 2 kids in school full-time at home. I have a job. I have a church that I'm faithful to. And even if you're not faithful to church, you probably got some type of organization, whether you're in a fraternity or a sorority or some organization that you have to deal with because you're trying to give yourself something to do. So the reality is, like, when am I going to go? So first, let's talk about what loneliness is. For me, I immediately was like, oh, this got to be a state of mind. Like, how I think. And I can control my thoughts. Now, some might not agree with me, but the reason why I believed it was because it wasn't all the time. There's a saying that we say over at Seeds of Weeds, which is, happiness is a choice. People who are happy because they choose to be. Have you ever met someone or seen a situation? You see it a lot on movies, especially where people are happy and it's all kind of craziness going on around them. And somebody mentioned they just out here ignoring what's going on, blindly being happy. Yeah, because they're choosing right to ignore, and to not necessarily ignore, but just not to allow all of that stuff that's going on to determine the state of mind they're going to have. Now, according to the dictionary, loneliness can be described as a state of solitude or being alone. I hate when they do that, y'all. Don't y'all hate that? Teachers used to say, do not put the word in the definition. Because what does the word mean? But loneliness is actually a state of mind. I was right. The loneliness is defined by researchers as feeling lonely more than once a week. Loneliness can cause people to feel empty, unwanted. People who are lonely often crave human contact, but their state of mind makes it more difficult for them to form connections. Is that you? Now listen, I'm a people person. I'm what they call introvert, extrovert. Yes, they exist. I crave to be around people, but at the same time, I literally want everybody to go away. So that puts me in a difficult situation because I often get lonely easier because people assume, oh, she don't mind being alone. But the reality is I want both. That's a whole nother subject. But I don't want anybody listening to this to feel like they are alone in this, because research shows that 1 in 5 Americans are lonely currently. That means that almost half of us feel like always or at some point we are by ourselves or we feel left out. Now that's the one, feeling left out. I remember Kevin on stage mentioning one time, he said it jokingly, but I felt him when he said that thing. He was like, don't not invite me to the picnic or to the events because I'm always saying no. Give me the opportunity to say no. I still want to be invited. And I remember when I read that and I was like, yes, that is me. I still want to be invited. I'm probably going to say no. And how crazy is that though? Really. It's so unfair to the other people that they like, look, I always invite you and you always saying no. So they're tired of the rejection, and we just want to be known that we are included. Y'all, it's crazy. But loneliness, a good example is like a child who struggles to make friends because they're at a different school. I think my children were kind of dealing with loneliness. COVID, again, is happening. And they're in virtual school and they can't have those day-to-day interactions. And both of my girls just so happen to be in a new school. So how in the world do you make friends virtually when there is no downtime? And to be honest, even if the teachers were to give them downtime, 22 kids talking all at once, it's not going to work. So, all of us in some form or fashion deal with loneliness. But the thing that I want to talk about mostly is how. First off, how do I recognize that I'm lonely? 2, once I recognize it, how can I fix it? With the way things are today, literally, what can I do? Well, there are some things that you can pay attention to. That if you are doing this, then you might be lonely. If you find yourself drinking more, if you find yourself using drugs more often than normal, you're doing this because you ain't got nothing to do, you might be lonely. If you find yourself thinking that maybe you are depressed, even thinking about suicide, you might be lonely. If you're just flat out making poor decisions, you're just making decisions that you normally wouldn't make just because you don't really care, you might be lonely. And I want to say this, the reality is loneliness leads to depression, but they are not the same. If you have low self-esteem, you don't really think highly of yourself, it absolutely will be hard to make connections with people. But I want you to know that it can be done. And I also want to make sure that in the end, we'll talk about if you are somebody, be honest with yourself, that needs help. If you're having suicidal thoughts, if you're feeling because this situation is just too much, please, there is a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 1-800-273 8255 for support or assistance from a trained counselor. Please, if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. But I want you to know that even if you are Christian, right, you can be lonely. I don't think that just because I'm Christian that I'm going to avoid any feelings or anything like that. Many of us experience loneliness. A lot of people don't know the difference between a friendly church and befriending people. There's a difference, because you can be in a friendly situation, but that don't mean that you're making friends. I am not talking about any one church. Don't none of y'all listen here. Now listen, don't y'all take this conversation and make it about you. Because that's not what this is about. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to help people with what I was dealing with. Okay? This is something real, and this is something, it was a cycle that I didn't like, and it was something I wanted to make sure that we talk about. But I bet you are asking yourself, well, does the Bible talk about loneliness? The Bible uses words like downcast, brokenhearted, troubled, miserable, despairing, mourning, and hopelessness. Now, not all of these words mean the same thing as lonely, but many of them overlap with loneliness. They all express the painful idea of being disconnected, overlooked, and forgotten. I'm going to give you just a couple of scriptures, and there are plenty that talk about it. Psalm 68:6. God sets the lonely in families. Now that one messed me up. God sets the lonely in families. And I believe that he does that because the Bible also talks about us needing one another. Y'all remember the song, I Need You to Survive? That was my jam. My old church used to sing that all the time. My bad, I digress. But the reality is, we do need one another. God built us to have connection and relationships. So I imagine that he sets the lonely in families to make sure that, one, the lonely knows that they're not alone. Two, the family recognizes that there is work in relationships. You have to nurture relationships, and it's our job as a family to take care of one another. Isn't that amazing? Ecclesiastes 4:8. Listen to this one. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. So he was wealthy. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. I love this scripture because it says here the man was wealthy. He didn't have any children, and he didn't have any relatives. And then he said, wait a minute, why am I doing this? The perfect question, why am I depriving myself from enjoyment? Remember, we talked earlier, loneliness is a state of mind. So if you have recognized now that you're lonely, you need to ask yourself this same question. Why am I depriving myself from being happy? Why? It's a miserable business. Y'all, that's the word. Ecclesiastes 4:8. And so that brings me to the question, how can I stop feeling so alone? Remember, we already discovered it's a state of mind. You can choose to not do it. Now, is it going to take some work? Absolutely. Is it going to take some inner healing? Yes, but it can be done. Because it's not a helpless condition. There are actions you can take to combat feeling alone and begin to have a more meaningful social connection in your life. It is absolutely possible. So there's a couple of things you can do. We're going to go through them quickly, but I want to make sure that I give you the tools. Remember, this is a real conversation. Right now, y'all can't see me. YouTube, you definitely won't be able to see me because this is only going to be voice this time. I hope y'all enjoy it. But I'm sitting in my bed. I have a recliner in my room. Just imagine you're on that recliner and we just talking, like coming up, what they say, a come to Jesus moment, a heart to heart. I want to make sure that I give you time to express what's on your heart and mind, and to really think about the reasons what led you to why you are where you are. So the very first thing you need to do is challenge your inner critic. Let that sink in. Or as my homeboy on Instagram, y'all, why my mind just go blank? You know, this is a mess when you trying to record and your mind just go blank. He always say, let that sizzle in your spirit. Country Wayne, my God, y'all know Country Wayne. He got like the great Instagram. He got like 17 series going on at once. The man is amazing. But anywho, let that sizzle in your spirit. You can absolutely take the steps because you're not alone. So challenge your inner critic. What does that mean? Your inner critic are the negative common thoughts that people have towards themselves. The thoughts that tell you you're different from other people. These are self-limiting beliefs, and they can keep you stuck in a cycle of loneliness. Y'all, that's exactly what I was in. This cycle. It was like I couldn't shake it. I would be really, really good, and then something would happen, and then I would feel lonely. And because I'm a little older, I could come out of it, shake myself out of it quickly, but I just was tired of the cycle. Now, my trigger, my inner critic, was always dealing with me when I had either a super special moment at work, like a huge accomplishment, or even personal. For instance, when I first did the podcast, did all the work, all of the challenge leading up to it, all of the promotion, and actually dropped it, I was so excited, but instantly I felt lonely because my inner critic said, well, you ain't got nobody to share this with. You don't have a significant other. You don't have a significant other to bounce ideas off of, to really, all you got is your friends and your mama. That's what my critic was saying, y'all. Come on, let's be real. And I was like, oh man. I mean, my friends know because I did call. I was like, yeah, I'm having a moment. I'm having a moment. So you got to challenge that inner critic. You got to challenge you. Inner voices will keep you from challenging yourself to step outside your comfort zone. They will continue to stab you in the back to keep you from to keep you avoiding taking action. When you hear these self-attacks, it is important that you do not allow them to manipulate your behavior. You acknowledge your feelings of loneliness and isolation without judgment. Okay? And you acknowledge them by saying, I feel lonely right now, but I'm not going to give in to my critical inner voice and beat myself up about it. Instead, you have got to learn to challenge that voice. So you acknowledge what you feel and you let that joker know. You tell yourself if you need to get in the mirror, if you need to put your favorite music on, you say, listen, yeah, I feel lonely, but that's not who I am. So how you can overcome your inner critic is practice self-compassion. Compassion, y'all. We've been hearing this all in different formats, but give yourself grace, okay? Be kind to yourself. What kind? What is that, Ashley? Oh my God. Listen, why are you so mean? You just so mean. You mean to yourself. You mean to your kids. You mean to your friends. You just real dry and sarcastic. Y'all, that's a new thing though, seriously. Now, I love dry humor. I used to watch shows like Mad About You and what's that? Big Bang Theory. Real dry humor, Third Rock from the Sun. Y'all, that's my show. But we have kind of made it a thing. Like it's almost cool if somebody talking to you to be real short and snippy and sarcastic. And then before you know it, you're that way with yourself. Be kind to yourself, okay? You gotta make sure that you are allowing yourself to have the feelings, but you're not staying there. And this is one of the first ways to combat, okay, the inner critic and to combat loneliness. So let's talk about self-kindness versus self-judgment. Hello. Self-compassion entails being warm and understanding towards ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain, ignoring ourselves, and overdoing it with self-criticism. We need to recognize our emotions without judging them. Okay? Like maybe you could say, or like I'll just use myself, I'm feeling lonely right now. And my inner critic normally would try to say, yep, you always lonely. There's something wrong with you. But I've done the self-work, so that didn't happen this time. But if that was to happen, I would say, girl, shut up. Now listen, I talk to myself wrong, okay? Now that you might be a little too sensitive for that. But either way, just make sure that you're not allowing your own thoughts, aka what I like to say, the devil, take your thoughts and manipulate you into just bashing yourself. Rather than saying that, the opposite would have empathy and sympathy for yourself. Be kind. Say, you know what? Yeah, I am struggling a little bit, but I'm going to come out of this. It's going to be okay. And don't set unrealistic goals. If you are lonely and you are trying to do the work, don't be like, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine. You're lying. No, you're not fine. You are hurting, but you won't be hurting forever. Okay? Give yourself grace. So we want to practice self-kindness, not self-judgment. What about mindfulness versus over-identification with thoughts? Self-compassion also requires taking a balanced approach to our negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. That's what I was just talking about. You do want to be mindful of how you feel. Okay, you want to be mindful of where your state of mind is, but you don't want to begin to over-identify, meaning you are not a loser just because you are alone. You are not bad at making friends just because you're a little shy. Okay? You got to be wary of these negative reactions to your feelings. Come on, y'all. Let's really deal with this stuff. Christians, non-Christians alike, men, women, children, it doesn't matter. These feelings are unavoidable. Everybody at some point, Jesus himself feels alone, or felt, in his case, felt alone. But it's what do I do with these emotions when they come? I think that's the thing that's not always taught. And I'm talking about from home to the boardroom to the church. There are some people who are doing a great job at doing their best at trying to make sure this information gets out. But I think sometimes in translation and understanding or interpretation of what's being taught, and in conjunction with life experiences, we're missing it. So you're gonna get lonely, but what do? That's what we're talking about. Don't identify with those. I tell my kids all the time, yes, you made a mistake, but you are not that mistake. Yes, you're feeling lonely now, but you feeling lonely doesn't make you a loser. It doesn't make you weird. You know, all these labels that we give ourselves, that's not who you are. You're just having a moment. Have your moment, girl, and then put your crown on. King, put your crown on. Put your best outfit. I seen a TikTok going around. I'm not going to say what she said because I don't do the words, the language. But she said, you hear the audio, and she's like, put your best outfit on, put your heels on, put your face on, men, put the cologne on, get you a haircut and stand in the mirror, and don't you feel like you the best thing walking around? That ain't what she said. That's not what she said. But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you got to do that. That is absolutely one way to combat. Because see, again, y'all know I keep saying I'm all about life application. How to combat loneliness. I get dressed, heels, makeup, do my hair, put my favorite jams on, and they ain't always gospel. Hello. I put on whatever I'm finna. I grew up in the 90s, so it's probably going to be some Ashanti, some Brandy, SWV, New Edition. It's going to be something, you know, I don't know. It's TLC, Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson. It's going to be something. And I put that thing on, and y'all look in the mirror, and I'm like, girl, you know you bad. Hello. You out here doing it. That's what I had to do. After the podcast, I got in my mirror, And I just dance. Me and my kids realize, and they start dancing, and it's contagious. Loneliness is contagious. What you don't know, y'all know that old saying, misery loves company. It's real. I'm walking around all depressed and miserable, and my kids were picking up on it. Before you know it, they was all, walking around just mopey. And when I put that music on and we started dancing, the whole environment, the climate in the house changed. And you can do that for yourself. All right. So now we know how to identify when we're lonely. We got some steps and some tips not to make sure we stay in that lonely place. You don't want to stay in isolation, because once you isolate yourself, that's when your mind gets to working, and those thoughts just, before you know it, they just come back to back. And you just can't stop thinking about how sucky your life is. It went from one small little moment to now you replaying every moment of your life of how people weren't there for you, and it just grows from loneliness. Remember, I said loneliness is a gateway drug to depression. So you want to come up with a plan and take some steps to break free. And that requires you to ask yourself some questions. When do I feel most alone? Remember earlier I talked about my trigger. It's normally when I have huge accomplishments at work or personally, or my children. We have like these special family moments. And I'm going to tell you one area of loneliness that was really, really crazy for me. I'm answering these questions. When do I feel most alone? New Year's. If you are single, then you know what I'm talking about. New Year's Eve, it used to be one of the worst holidays. Matter of fact, all holidays, but New Year's specifically, because everybody is normally booed up. And if they ain't booed up, they got a good group of friends, right? All my friends are married. So that ball drop, everybody's celebrating, everybody kissing and hugging, even my children kissing and hugging each other, and I'm sitting there. I normally would go to the bathroom, y'all, no lie, just so I didn't have to see that. That was a trigger for me. That was a moment when I felt most alone. I know I'm not alone in that. Okay, so first question, when do you feel most alone? When do you feel least alone? What activities do I most enjoy? Is there anyone I feel good spending time with? And whoever that is, list their names. Remember, the Bible talks about it. Make the plan, write the vision, make it plain. Okay? So you got to make a plan for yourself, especially if you are in a constant cycle. If this is something that happens more often than not, and that saying simply means you are more lonely than you are not lonely, you need to make a plan. And you need to answer these questions. Now think about some concrete ways to address the answers to these questions. How can I feel less alone at those times when I'm lonely? Can you reach out to a friend? Can you join an online community group? There are plenty of them. Find a healthy way, to distract yourself from loneliness. Healthy, like exercise, playing a video game, or what did we talk about last week? Meditation. Y'all see the connection now? This is why meditation is so important. And another thing I do, and you got to be careful with this, because we're talking about a healthy way, is I like to get me a glass of tea, put on me some jazz, because I like jazz, and I will literally just watch the birds. That's it. Get you a cup of tea. My homegirl just came out with a tea company. I'm probably finna botch the name because that's what I do. Y'all gonna learn this. This is why. Can y'all hear this? That's why paper are important. Did I write it down? No. Am I prepared? No. Got a whole podcast, didn't prepare. But I will definitely link her stuff in the YouTube and the Instagram. Y'all go check her out. I think it's called Savoring and Something Teas. Ooh, Erica is going to kill me. But I'll link her stuff. But I get me a cup of tea and I chill. I meditate. What do you think about when you feel less alone at certain times? How can you expand on those positive times? For example, if you feel good at work, maybe you should spend some more time with your coworkers. That's not me. Find you a hobby. I got a hobby. I joined a mentor group. I'm being mentored along with bringing other women along with me, and it's been amazing. I used to coach cheer. I am trying to find a way to start it back up. We got to be safe, but find you a hobby. I love art. Me and the kids have painted and built so much stuff. Y'all, I done built and got cuts and scratches, but that's how I distract myself from loneliness. Get you whatever your skills are. Work on your skills. Okay? Are activities you enjoy social? If so, how can I make sure I still stay connected during a pandemic? It's possible, y'all. The internet has incredible resources. Things like this podcast. Yes, that is a shameless plug. But the reality is this is a way to feel connected. The way I do things, it's a community. You can leave comments. You can leave, even on this one, on Anchor, y'all. Did y'all know you can leave messages, like voice messages? You can interact. If you want to come on the podcast, reach out, send me an email, manelookpodcast@gmail.com, and we can get you on, okay? But find a way to stay connected. If you are a social butterfly, like I told y'all, I'm an introvert, extrovert. And so what I do sometimes, if I go to Walmart with my mask and I speak there, my kids said it yesterday. My baby girl, y'all done grew 2 shoe sizes. Y'all praying? Y'all not praying. I just bought her all kind of shoes for Christmas and she can't wear none of them. Whew, that's neither here nor there. The point is, we were at the mall, we were sitting, we hadn't ate nothing. We were safe, masked up, we were eating. And they said, Mama, you just speaking to everybody. Yeah, you want to know why? Because I ain't talked to people in a long time. I'm sick of talking to my coworkers. I see my family every day. Thank God. I know that's not everybody's story. And I just was speaking. And people were enjoying it. They weren't, the little sarcasticness I was talking about earlier. I wasn't receiving. It was like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing well. How are you? You got to do what you got to do. Okay? If there are friends, co-workers, or family members that you feel good being around, spend more time with them. Now, safely, okay? But spend more time with your family. I have never understood people, and we'll probably do a podcast about that. This whole, I haven't talked to my mama in a week. What? My mind can't wrap around that. And it was just, that's not the way I was raised. I think it is possible. Even, and I know it's possible because somebody say, well, Ashley, you not married. I got friends who are. They talk to their mama every day. I ain't saying we having 14-hour conversations, but I check on her. She's getting older. I'm getting older. But we going to talk about relationships. That's definitely going to be an episode, okay? But you don't want to allow yourself to stay isolated. You want to make sure that you do what you got to do so you can stay connected, okay? Practice generosity. One of the best actions we can take to counteract hopelessness or loneliness is the way we may feel is to think outside of ourselves. Generosity is a natural repellent against self-hatred. You have got to believe beyond all doubt that you have something to offer. Hello, you are beautiful. You are smart. You're intelligent. You're valued. Okay? You are important. Volunteering is a great exercise in thinking outside yourself. It gives you an opportunity to connect with new people. There are a lot of people affected by this pandemic, y'all, not just you in your own little world. Go to the homeless shelters. You'll see. Go to the women and children shelters. Go to the hospitals. No, don't go to the hospitals. But maybe you can donate some toys. Me and the girls just did that. We donated some toys to the kids, to the parents at St. Jude and Labana. Generosity as a principle can lead to stronger self-esteem, which leads to more social behavior. Even little acts of generosity can have a significant impact. Listen, just be kind. Do y'all hear the underline? Be kind. I hope this helped. I really, really did, because I don't want anybody to feel the way I felt a couple of weeks ago. And I hope you're leaving knowing that, listen, I can do this. I don't have to be lonely. And I want you to know that this struggle is common. Many battle. They do. But one place this also affects, I can't leave without talking about it, is our relationship with God. Loneliness, remember that very first scripture I read, God sets the lonely in families. Remember, it's all about Him wanting us to be closer to Him. And so it should draw you closer. In fact, we want to make sure, or I love to say we, because my team is coming. Hello, they on the way, y'all. But I want to make sure that you know that God loves you, and you are created, men and women, in the image of God. And He created us for connection. So allow this time of loneliness to draw you closer to Him. Now, do all the other things that I talked about in the natural. Remember, life application is important. Do those things. Make sure you're combating your inner critic. Make sure you're doing self-compassion, not self-judgment. Make sure you are expanding upon times of happiness. Make sure you are finding something to do outside of work and family. Make sure that you are giving yourself affirmations. But the most crucial connection that we need more than any of the other ones is our relationship with God. We need to make sure we know that He loves us. And even though we might struggle to find love, acceptance, or connection with other people, there is always acceptance from Jesus. Do y'all hear me? There is always acceptance from Jesus. There are so many people in the Bible that felt lonely. There are so many examples. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to list them because I want y'all to know. So there's Leah in Genesis, Hagar and Ishmael, also in Genesis, Miriam, she's in Numbers, Elijah, 1 King, Jeremiah. Now, y'all take some time to read that. Y'all will see. King David, he felt lonely. The bleeding woman, oh my God. Now, I'm going to talk about her real quick. One day, I'm going to share my story, but just a quick blip. I myself found myself bleeding to death, literally. And if you're not familiar with this story, it can be found in Mark chapter 5, the book of Mark chapter 5. Can you imagine bleeding for 12 years long? Nope. But I can tell you who bled for 7 years. That was me, y'all. I literally was bleeding to death. This story I connected with so much because in the Bible times, when you bled the way she did, you would be considered unclean. So she could not go to the temple with the other women. She couldn't sit where other people sat, even in her own home, or they would be considered unclean. She couldn't go out in public. Nobody could touch her. Can you imagine that? This woman absolutely was lonely. And I know because I was there. When you're bleeding like that, and I hope this ain't too graphic for other people, but y'all know I gotta keep it real. When you bleed like that, you can't go to the movies. The up and down motion, I couldn't sit for too long. Because as soon as I got up, it was gonna be a problem for everybody involved. I could barely go to church. Same problem. Couldn't sit. Stand. Say the scripture. Sit. Stand. I couldn't do it, y'all. I couldn't enjoy day-to-day things. I was stuck in my room in a place where I know I could clean up easily if I needed to. Couldn't go to work. I was consistently in pain. I know how that felt. This lady had to be lonely. And she decided, you know what? I'm going to courage up and I'm going to touch the hem of Jesus' cloak. Can you imagine the courage it took for her to crawl through that crowd? A crowd? I couldn't be in no crowd when I was bleeding like that. There was no way. And then Jesus answered her and said, but the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And this is the crazy thing. When we are lonely for so long, it is so hard to reach out and connect with others. When this woman overcame her fear, she was healed. And when you overcome yourself and realize that, you know what? I absolutely can do this. You too can experience healing. I just want to mention again, if you are feeling isolated and maybe experiencing symptoms of depression, please get help. If you or someone you know is in crisis or in need of immediate help, you can call 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. This is a free hotline available 24 hours a day to anyone in emotional distress or suicidal crisis. Well, I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you to all of my listeners on Spotify, Anchor, and all of the many platforms. YouTube, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you spread this. This conversation needs to go to the masses, because we've all had a situation of loneliness that made us say, man, look, I need help. This has been your girl, Nicole, signing out. See you next time. Peace.